clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to all of you who are in a relationship about the biggest fear you face when it comes to coming out to your partners. And I'm talking about all of you out there who are sure that you identify as transgender, know you're struggling with gender dysphoria. Now, I know that all of you are not going to be 100% sure. Seldom anybody is 100% sure, but you are pretty certain you identify as transgender. You're not going through denial. You're not thinking it's something that's going to go away. You know you're struggling with gender dysphoria, and you're in a relationship and you're afraid to come out. Well, the biggest fear you're going to face when it comes to coming out to your loved ones is going to be fear of abandonment. It's going to be the fear that they're going to leave you, that they're not going to stay with you, that they're going to realize that perhaps this is not something for them, that they cannot adapt to your new gender expression, your new gender identity. And usually what happens is the longer you've been in a relationship, and the more value that relationship has accumulated for you, both tangible and intangible values, such as having children, shared pets, shared household, other assets, intangible values such as great memories you have created together, times you together kind of stormed through as a couple and were able to persevere. All of those experiences, all of the things that you see as the value of a relationship, and the longer you've been in it, the more difficult it is going to be for you to face your fear and to come out to your partners, because it's going to be only natural that part of you is going to be tremendously terrified and afraid to lose that value. Part of you is going to be very scared that everything that you see, that you perceive that's really important to you, you're going to lose. And especially another thing that tends to really affect the fear is this misconception that you're also being fed by our society and media and everything else, that being transgender person means to be alone. It means you're never going to be loved. It means you're never going to find a partner. And that type of misconception is also exasperates your fear and prevents you from coming out to your partner, because you start believing that misconception true. And while I'm not going to lie to you, the older you are, it can be much more challenging to find a partner or to find a relationship post-transition. Nonetheless, it's not impossible. I have seen people of all different ages who have transitioned, who were able to find somebody they connected with and to form a relationship. So it's not impossibility. This idea that nobody's ever going to want to be with a transgender person is complete bullshit. And to be honest, we're seeing less and less in that, especially in the younger generation, in younger individuals. I see that a lot of my clients who are in their mid-20s to, I would say, all the way and up, I see a lot more of my clients who are able to go out there and just date and have relationship. And there's so many more people right now who are completely open and comfortable with gender diversity, which is fortunately is a very good and a healthy thing. But for older people, it tends to be harder because you're meeting people in your age group category, and because that age group or category has been affected by societal type of transphobic ideas and societal and cultural ideas about gender as only being binary. As a result, it becomes that much more difficult, but again, not impossible. So your fear is formulated by these two biggest things. Is one, again, is what is the value you have accumulated, and then two, this misconception that, oh my God, I'm going to be alone. And as a result, a lot of you choose to stay in a relationship and not to come out to your partners. And I know that brings a lot of pain. And I know that is a very difficult choice. And I know that brings you a lot of inner isolation, because there's no way you're going to be really connected to your partner when you're hiding something that is so big and so important and such a big part of who you are. And I want to challenge all of you today. And I want to challenge all of you because I care about you. And as much as I know what your fear is, I felt your fear. I sat with your fear so many times. I also care about your partners. And I think that if you're going to feel this fear, and if you're going to decide not to come out, That is okay to do, but you cannot do that at expense of your partner. You cannot stay in the cage of your fear at expense of your partner. It is not fair and it's not the right thing to do. Now, I know that a lot of you are not ready to come out yet. I know that a lot of you are completely paralyzed by fear. I know that a lot of you can't even contemplate the idea of coming out because you're afraid again of abandonment, you're afraid again of loss. And hopefully your time will come. At the same time, dragging this on for a long time, for years, when you know you're transgender, at expense of your partner is not fair to your partner. Put yourself in your partner's shoes. How would you feel if your partner kept that part of their identity hidden for so long? So I think it's your responsibility to really be honest with yourself and to really be honest with your partner. And yes, I do know that sadly, for some of you, your partners are not going to be able to stick around. You will experience what you feel as abandonment. You will experience what you feel as loneliness and being alone. But ask yourself this question: do you really want to be with a partner who wouldn't want to be with you, with all of you? Especially the gender identity part of you. So if the partner is going to decide it's not for them, which I think if they do, you have to also respect their decision and their choices. Again, do you still want to be with a partner who is not going to be open to that? And that's something to challenge yourself with, right? Another thing that I want you to challenge yourself with is this idea that even though you've been in a relationship with your partner, and some of you have been in a relationship for short, some of you have been for much longer time, for decades and decades, I want to challenge you with this idea that who is really present in that relationship? Gender is such a big part of who we are. It's not all of it. It's not whole pizza pie, as I say. It's only a slice of who we are. Nonetheless, it's a very big slice of who we are, because gender is very strongly tied not only to how we see ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, but also from which mindset, from which point of view, from which inner schema we tend to operate. So of all these years hiding and keeping this away from your partners also creates something else between you and your partner. And what that something else is a distance, right? Because I guarantee you, gender dysphoria, and I know gender dysphoria is such a painful, horrible noise in the back of your head that as a result, I know you've been distant to your partners. And the distance could have manifested in a number of ways. It could be that you were sublimating and working long hours just so you don't have to come home. It could be a sexual distance, right? It could be that because of gender dysphoria, you felt so uncomfortable with your body and therefore so uncomfortable to be intimate with your partner, you started to avoid having sex with them. Other ways you have created distance for yourself. Maybe you were escaping into playing video games a lot. Maybe you were escaping into some form of addiction, drinking, some other forms of addictive behavior. Your partner, especially the longer they've been with you, they have felt the distance. I guarantee you, we as human beings, the longer we spend together with somebody else, we start really feeling and we become very perceptive to those things. Now, what happens also is that your partners don't know what's going on with you, but they feel the distance. But because a lot of the partners also seldom lack clear ability to communicate, because we're just not taught it in this world, your partners seldom come to you and ask, what's happening? I feel this distance. I feel you're not present with me. I feel our sex life is suffering. I feel you're not home for dinners. You're not home for the kids. I feel you are constantly avoiding me. You're constantly avoiding life around you. And one of the reasons why, by the way, they're also afraid to bring it up, because they're afraid to lose you the same way you're afraid you're going to lose them. So people, you know what people do in relationship when they confronted with this distance that they feel? People start telling themselves stories. They start to come up with a narrative why there's a distance. Your partner might start telling themselves that the reason why there's a difference during sex is because you don't desire them. Maybe their body's not attractive. Maybe there's something going on with your sexuality. Maybe you're seeing somebody else. The partner can start telling themselves stories about the distance of you working late, that you don't want to come home, that you don't want to be with them, that you maybe regretting having kids and you don't want to be around kids. Do you see what I'm trying to say? We as human beings start to create and spin narratives inside our heads. We spin blockbusters, as I like to say, inside our heads, these movies that we create. And eventually those blockbusters becomes truths. It's something that we start seeing at the face value. So it's very important for you to come out to your partners, because otherwise your partners are also creating an inner world within their world of who you are. And that's also not based on truth and not based on reality. A lot of times what I see when I work with couples of different ages, when a partner comes out, of course the partner responds in a completely different variety of ways. They can feel very emotional, very sad, they can feel very angry, very frustrated, they can feel neutral. No matter how they feel, eventually what the partners tend to say is, okay, finally this makes so much sense. Finally I can understand. Finally I can understand why you were behaving particular way. Suddenly things are just really put into this explanation box. Now I can see why you were so irritable. Now I can see why you had angry outbursts. Now I can see why you were so distant. Suddenly they have this clarity, and I think it's so important for your partners to have this clarity. And I think when we're in a relationship, right, relationships are important things. They're very special things, because we now have responsibility for another human being, and they have responsibility for us, no matter how we want to look at this responsibility. Relationships are very special because we are no longer are moving through life solo. We're moving life with somebody else, holding somebody's hand. And because we're holding somebody's hand, like I said, I think it's important to be as honest as we can with each other, because your decisions, what's happening to you, your behaviors is affecting your partner. And so the longer you are staying in a closet and the longer you are not coming out, the more you continue the distancing that they feel. And trust me, they're not happy with the distance either. So as much as it is hard, and I know it is so hard for you guys, I know it's so difficult for you to move beyond this fear. And I know that a lot of you are going to comment and say that you did come out to your partners and that your partner couldn't handle it and that they left you. And perhaps this is the biggest regret decisions that you have ever made in your life. I think it's also important to realize that while you may perceive it as a loss of your partner, you have gained yourself, right? There's always a trade-off of if you're staying with your partner, you're not coming out, you're losing yourself. Your partner is also losing themselves too. So it's really important to think about the things. I really challenge you guys to think about the things, because nothing really goes without unnoticed, I would say. Partners sense something is going on. They're wondering why you're behaving, why are you withdrawn, why are you absent. A lot of times when gender dysphoria, what happens with us is that we're there, but we're not there, right? We're sitting there with our partners, but our mind is elsewhere, and they can feel that too. And that type of distancing is painful to go through for your partners. And, I really wish they also could be courageous enough to broach up the subject and just say, hey, what's going on? And a lot of partners do, they ask you, what's going on? Why is there a difference? What's going on? You become paralyzed, you come up with another excuse, and eventually you get so accustomed to coming up with excuses, you get so accustomed to lying, to coming up with lies, what's going on, that one lie links into another and becomes your life. And sometimes it's difficult. I know it's difficult to get out of that position, but it's important and it's necessary for you. It's important, necessary for them. There's an element of liberation, an element of having that load being taken off. I know that a lot of you who came out also felt that. You felt that freedom, that not having to hide anymore, not having to keep things a secret anymore. So I really challenge you. I know this is your biggest fear of abandonment. At the same time, by not coming out, I think then you also use and abandoning your partner. while you're afraid that they're going to abandon you. So there's a lot of things here to think about. And I know this is very difficult. I know this is very challenging. I get it. And I know that sometimes for some of you, it can take some time before you're able to face those fears and confront those fears. But I think it's the right thing to do. And I think it's a fair thing to do and a responsible thing to do, to face up and to be honest with your partners and to be honest with yourself. Um, Another thing that some of you tends to say is, I'm not going to come out to my partner because I don't want to put them through that. I don't want to put them through the pain and suffering and grieving that they're going to go through. I can't stress this enough. None of us are responsible for anybody's feelings. You cannot be responsible for how your partner is going to feel. They're responsible for how they feel. They're responsible for processing their feelings. So it's really important to realize that you cannot shield your partners from anything. And in fact, by not coming out, you're really not doing them any favors either. So think about all of that. Comment below. I would love to hear your comments, especially those of you who are afraid to come out. What do you think about this? How are you going to challenge yourself to address the fear within yourself? Those of you who have come out, share below how that unfolded for you. Was there a sense of relief? What actually helped you to bypass that fear so that others can maybe have a takeaway from that? And also those of you who are in relationship now, post relationships that didn't work out, share that as well, because I think there's a huge misconception about transgender equals alone that I think again is completely untrue, and I just think it's a horrible misconception. I think that there's a lot of people who are alone. There's a lot of people who are struggling to find people to be in a relationship with, and I understand that being transgender and having a kind of a different gender expression, different gender identities that a lot of the world is accustomed to, makes it that much more challenging, but it's not impossible. So comment below, share. I'd love to hear your comments, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.